is I'm most interested in how the work is presented in the gallery, because ultimately that's the experience that the viewer is going to have. Sometimes you've walked into galleries and the work maybe looks precarious or unprotected. Part of the reason is that we want, as a gallerist, to have the best, we want you to have the best aesthetic experience of the work. And if anybody has ever looked at a very dark photograph behind glass or plexiglass and noticed the reflection, it's not a great way to experience the work. So sometimes in a gallery, including my own gallery, we actually might do some things that are slightly dangerous for the work, exposing it in a certain way that may become fragile. But ultimately, I want to share the experience of the work with you. Then if it's collected or purchased, then there's another way we can actually talk about the proper presentation and the proper care. But sometimes in the case of Larry Clark, where you have 77 gelatin silver prints tacked to the wall from the floor to the ceiling, it's about the experience of seeing all that work installed like that, even though it's open like that. It would be totally different if you had them in black frames all nicely lined up. Because you can imagine installing 77 photographs just by eyeballing them. They got a little crooked, but that was part of what Larry wanted to really do. This is a photograph by Thomas Ruf. This is the first time I'd ever seen a large photograph by the Germans. There was an artist I was working with at the time who printed color work, but a lot smaller. And when he saw this, he said, we must conquer the Germans. And so he started making large prints because he felt very competitive. And I think through competition and technology, that's in part why we have the work that we do. Obviously conceptually too, there's something to be said about that. This is just an installation view of an artist that I represent that actually the museum has in their collection, Bart Michiels. Because of the large scale, these are actually 5 by 6 feet. Presenting large color work is a difficult thing to do. Bart chose to face mount the work, similar to Diasec, although not quite Diasec, but where the front of the print is actually mounted to a sheet of plexi. I believe the museum chose not to do that. So again, it has to do, in my case, with the proper presentation of the work. I think in the museum's case was a greater sensitivity to long-term care. So there might be a little bit of difference there. We both ultimately want the same thing, but there's a sensitivity, I think, on the museum's part. And the other aspect of presentation is, or rather the other aspect that I want to talk about is presentation of work. A lot of times in galleries or museums, we're so accustomed to seeing a single image or just image after image after image on a nice line. And there are just a couple of artists that I think do things a little bit differently. One is Gerhard Richter. This is from the series Atlas that I first saw exhibited at the Dia Foundation, I believe it was in 1995. This is a collection of thousands of photographs, newspaper clippings, etc., of things that inspired him for his paintings. And this is how they were presented, all kind of coupled like this. This is an installation view of that. So everything, although hard to see in this, you see there are kind of landscapes, sunsets, portraits, all kind of grouped together. And this was kind of an interesting way to see photography presented in mass like this. Another artist that uses kind of offbeat presentations of photography, Christian Bolkonsky. Obviously elements other than photography is involved here, but you can see a very unusual light placement in front of the photograph. I don't know how the long-term archival longevity of those photographs, having lights kind of blasted on it like that. But the important thing is it's the presentation of the work and the aesthetic of the work that the artist really wants to get across. Kind of on a simpler level, this is an artist, Thomas Allen, actually, which is also in the collection here, and a somewhat traditional frame where the work is actually mounted from behind and then set into a frame with museum glass. But in this case, we chose to do a yellow band around the gallery for 3 reasons. One is to kind of focus you in on the work itself. The second reason being the work is kind of cinematic. It deals with pulp fiction narrative. And third is the color is the same color of an old paperback book. So conceptually, we didn't want to be heavy-handed with the presentation, but we did feel after 3 exhibitions that we wanted to kind of reinforce the work's aesthetic a little bit more, but not too much. And the last artist that I'll share with you is another interesting artist from Sao Paulo, Brazil. He's a street artist. He combines the street art and graffiti of Sao Paulo along with photography. What he does is he creates graffiti and then in an environment in Sao Paulo and then photographs that graffiti with something or some person interacting with it. So it's kind of this, the best of the old and the new. The best of the new being street art of Sao Paulo, the best of the old being kind of the decisive moment with Cartier-Bresson. In other words, something really needs to be happening between the street art and the graffiti itself. When we did the installation, we painted the walls a very dark, rich gray, and he actually then did different graffiti in the room, the same graffiti that actually was in the photographs themselves, so that when you came in, you could experience the photographs. You could also experience the process as to how the photographs were made. So it was a complete environment. And that's, there's something to be said about that, because it's not just the photographs and the representation, but it kind of clues you into the environment and the process that the artist went through. And then this is the final installation where you can see the photograph there in the center, and to the left is the actual graffiti stencil that we used. And then, of course, during an opening, you kind of have it all come back together, where not only are the photographs there of people interacting with the graffiti, but the graffiti's there and people at the opening are interacting with the graffiti. So you have this kind of cyclical, kind of somewhat conceptual presentation of the work. And that's what I brought for you today. Thanks very much.
Okay. I'm going to bring up Nora Kennedy next. She is currently the Sherman Fairchild Conservator of Photographs at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, where she established a lab devoted to the conservation of photographs. During her tenure at the Met, she's worked on over 28 major and 59 minor photography exhibitions and continues to expand the museum's initiatives in education and research. Nora also serves on the adjunct faculty of the New York University Institute of Fine Arts Conservation Center. With her partner, Peter Mastardo, she established the private conservation firm, The Better Image, in 1990 and continues with the business in an advisory capacity. Nora received her Master of Science degree in conservation from the University of Delaware Winterthur Museum Art Conservation Program in 1986. In 2003, the university awarded her a Presidential Citation for Outstanding Achievement. And in 2006, she was awarded the American Institute for Conservation's Sheldon and Carolyn Keck Award, recognizing a sustained record of excellence in the education and training of conservation professionals. She's currently working with colleague Debbie Hess-Norris of the University of Delaware and Zaina Arida of the Arab Image Foundation on a 3-year project to survey photograph collections in the Middle East and provide intensive preservation training for collection keepers throughout the region. The broader initiative includes a partnership with the Getty Conservation Institute for a symposium, distance mentoring, and follow-up meetings for all involved. Nora will also be guest scholar at the Getty Museum for 2.5 months this spring to develop online education tools in photograph conservation. So please join me in welcoming Nora.
Thank you. Well, it's great to see such a good turnout here. I'm really pleased to be back in Milwaukee again. I just wanted to mention the business about the Middle East. We were so proud when we got money first from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation and then the Getty Conservation Institute, but boy, in the recent news, photography is not the first thing that people are thinking about right now at the moment. Anyway, we'll hope for the best. Thank you very much to the Photography Council, to Mel, to Lisa for the invitation, Brooke for your absolutely flawless arrangements. Again, it's wonderful to be here to talk about one of my favorite topics, contemporary photography, and quite honestly, I could be talking here all night, but I'm really going to try to restrict my comments. My goal really is to try to highlight for you some of the issues that I run across in my work at the Metropolitan Museum, and hope that, really, I want to hear from you. I want to hear what your questions are, your ideas, your concerns. So I'll try to zoom through this so we can get to the Max and then the question session. As you've heard, I'm coming from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. We collect photographs there